All eyes have been on the U.S. pullout from Afghanistan and the speedy Taliban takeover. Now Afghanistan could once again become a breeding ground for terrorism since the Taliban declared full control over the country. Thousands are trapped and trying to escape, including Americans. Here's CBN News national security correspondent Caitlin Burke with more.
In a press briefing, the Pentagon said it now has the ability to evacuate 5,000 to 9,000 people a day from Kabul airport. While those efforts continue around the clock, counterterrorism experts warn about who's flooding into Afghanistan.
And this is the Taliban checkpoint. They are taking the security off the street.
There is real concern that with the Taliban back in charge of Afghanistan, that al-Qaeda is going to be able to rebuild its networks in that country.
Nathan Sales is the former ambassador-at-large and coordinator for counterterrorism at the State Department. He says one of the terms of President Trump's deal with the Taliban was that they break all ties with al-Qaeda. They haven't done that.
Just a couple of weeks ago, the United Nations released a report about the relationship between Taliban leaders and al-Qaeda. Unfortunately, that relationship remains robust.
Many foreign services and intelligence officials believe the Taliban's victory has re-energized other jihadists around the world.
Unfortunately, the stage really has been set for al-Qaeda to reassert itself in Afghanistan to our detriment.
Previous intelligence estimates suggested it would take up to 2 years after a full U.S. withdrawal before al-Qaeda could again pose a threat to the United States. Sales tells CBN News the Taliban victory changes everything.
They see Afghanistan as the site of a great victory. They will try to pull recruits into Afghanistan to fight for them in much the same way that ISIS was a magnet for jihadists from around the world into Syria and Iraq several years ago. Al-Qaeda is going to take a page out of that playbook and look to reconstitute their networks there.
The intelligence community has been warning the Biden administration that pulling forces there would hurt our ability to contain extremist threats. Biden, though, maintains counterterrorism efforts don't require boots on the ground.
In order to do counterterrorism, you need to have intel. You need to know where the bad guys are located, and you need to know what they're plotting. And in order to collect that information, you need to have drones flying overhead, vacuuming up signals intelligence. And you also need to have a network of spies, human intelligence assets, who are collecting information.
A U.S. presence in Afghanistan offered reassurance to our assets on the ground that they would have protection if they were discovered. With our withdrawal, Sales says those abilities have been eliminated outright or dramatically reduced.
Israel's enemies are already using the hasty U.S. pullout from Afghanistan against the Jewish state, and they're wasting no time in taking action.
The minute that Biden declared his withdrawal, the Taliban immediately declared victory before anything else happened. And that was echoed by jihadists all around the world, and they've been encouraged and inspired by this.
Colonel Richard Kemp, former British commander in Afghanistan, sees Afghanistan becoming a major training ground for terrorists to attack the West.
From those two things of having a safe haven again for terrorism, which we had tried to prevent by a 20-year campaign, and secondly, by empowering and inspiring jihadists all around the world, I think we are now about to enter a situation where the terrorist threat will be at least as high from Afghanistan as it was from the Islamic State when it controlled vast swathes of territory in Syria and in Iraq.
And for Israel, the threat is immediate. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah says U.S. behavior during the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan indicates the moral downfall of America. They evacuated the dogs who worked in the security forces, but not those who aided them. They took out their equipment but left the human beings behind. These are the Americans. Nasrallah called on those living in the region to draw specific conclusions from the Taliban victory. Then within hours, the Iranian-backed terrorist issued a warning about an oil tanker departing Iran bound for Lebanon.
The tanker is coming from Iran and will sail in a few hours. I tell the Americans and Israelis that this is Lebanese territory.
Earlier, senior Hamas official Musa Abu Marzouk praised the Taliban victory in a tweet. They confronted the Americans and its agents and refused to compromise with them. They were not deceived by bright headlines about democracy and elections. Hamas delivered another message in the form of a rocket, the first since May's 11-day war with Israel. While touring the site, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett sent his own message.
We will operate at a time, a place, and in conditions that suit us, and not anyone else. As far as we're concerned, the address in Gaza is Hamas, not rebellious groups or anybody else, only Hamas.
On Facebook, opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu posted about being invited to Afghanistan in 2013 by then Secretary of State John Kerry. The message was clear. The Afghanistan model is the model the United States seeks to implement in the Palestinian matter as well. I politely refused the offer. I estimated then that once the U.S. leaves Afghanistan, everything will collapse. We will get the same result if, God forbid, we deliver the homeland to the Palestinians. Alpha,